When Harvard President Alan Garber publicly criticized former President Donald Trump during a live television broadcast, he believed he had the upper hand. In defense of academic freedom, Garber pointed to Trump as a figure representing extreme ideology. However, he didn't anticipate that the real challenge that day wouldn't be met with defense, it would strike back. Within moments, 27-year-old White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt reversed the momentum, revealing the political leanings embedded within one of America's most revered institutions. This wasn't merely a debate, it was a political takedown, marking a moment where the walls of academia no longer appeared untouchable. Before we dive into the heart of this showdown, drop a comment telling us where you're watching from, and make sure to subscribe to stay up to date with the latest events. That day, the National Forum studio transformed into a stage of intense ideological conflict. Bright lights illuminated the sleek wooden flooring, bouncing off the tension that filled the room. Banners fluttered above, red hats dotted the audience, and the air pulsed with opposing beliefs ready to clash. At the center of it all stood Rachel Carter, a veteran journalist with a sharp presence and an unwavering stare. Holding her microphone, she faced the camera, her voice deep and measured, like the bell ringing in a battle of intellect and power. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, "the confrontation between former President Donald Trump and Harvard University is rocking the foundation of American politics. But first, consider this figure. $2.3 billion in federal funding has been withdrawn from Harvard. Is this protecting taxpayer money or a strategic blow against the education sector?" She turned to her first guest. "Dr. Garber, what's your take?" The room grew still. All eyes turned toward Alan Garber, Harvard's president. Sitting upright, his face stern, he cleared his throat and responded with composed indignation. "This isn't a budget trim. It's an assault on the pursuit of knowledge. That funding supports cancer research, development in sustainable technology, and scholarships for underprivileged students. We've been forced to borrow $750 million just to keep our programs alive. This administration is undermining our progress simply because we won't cave to political coercion." His response echoed through the studio, drawing thunderous applause from Harvard students in the audience, who lifted their banners with pride. Rachel Carter shifted to her next guest, White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt, her eyes challenging. "Miss Leavitt, the administration contends Harvard no longer merits this funding. Why is that?" Leavitt leaned in slightly, her eyes razor-sharp and a subtle, assured smile crossing her face. "Let's be honest," she began, her tone calm but assertive. "That $2.3 billion belongs to American taxpayers. It's not a special entitlement for Harvard. This school pours resources into initiatives that are more performative than impactful. Diversity, equity, inclusion, just buzzwords. And all the while, they sit on a $50 billion endowment. Why can't they fund these programs themselves instead of crying foul?" Each of her words sliced through the air like a scalpel, precise and deliberate. Garber straightened in his seat, gripping the arms of his chair. His composure showed subtle signs of strain, though his voice remained intact. "That's a gross mischaracterization," he responded, his pitch slightly elevated. "The endowment ensures long-term viability. It's not a short-term spending pool. Federal support fuels innovations in medical science, AI, clean energy, initiatives that save lives and shape the future. Cutting it doesn't just impact us, it jeopardizes humanity's progress." His final words landed with gravity, sincere, and foreboding. Rachel Carter, maintaining her composed professionalism, looked between the guests and nodded slightly before redirecting to Leavitt. "Miss Leavitt, Dr. Garber argues this isn't merely Harvard's loss, it's the nation's. Your rebuttal?" Leavitt didn't blink. Her tone, low but unwavering, carried unmistakable force. "Real advancement doesn't parade privilege. Americans deserve to see their money fund real education, not culture war theatrics." If Harvard is so transparent, let's see the breakdown, Dr. Garber. The people are waiting. Her challenge was sharp, unyielding, and direct. Carter seized the charged moment. Dr. Garber, is Harvard willing to fully open its financial records to eliminate any suspicion? Garber paused. A momentary hesitation broke through his usually unwavering confidence. Our reports are public, he answered, attempting to retain poise. We support thousands of programs, from medical and engineering advancements to scholarships and fundamental research. These allegations distort the truth. But his words felt light. The impact was muted. A brief silence hung heavy, as if everyone sensed the momentum shifting. Carter glanced toward Leavitt, anticipating her response. Leavitt struck quickly. If you're transparent, why borrow $750 million? Why not use the $50 billion endowment? Americans aren't gullible, Dr. Garber. They see through the mismanagement. It was a cutting blow. Garber's face turned red. Carter elevated the stakes. Miss Leavitt, are you suggesting Harvard should operate without federal support? Leavitt nodded, her eyes unwavering. They have a choice. Pursue true education or politicization. But if they choose the latter, they shouldn't expect public funds. Her firm declaration ignited the studio. Cheers erupted from one half of the crowd. The other half responded with outrage. Leavitt casually took out her phone, swiping as a post flashed on the screen behind them. It read, Harvard whines over losing 2.3B while hiding a 50B endowment. Where's the money, Garber? Open the books. The hashtag Harvard Humiliated trended instantly. MAGA supporters erupted in chants, overshadowing Harvard students who now held their banners lower. Garber tried to regain footing, urgency in his tone. This is misdirection. Harvard's work uplifts hospitals, startups, and underserved communities. These claims are manufactured, but his voice was swallowed in the escalating crowd noise. In the eye of the storm, Rachel Carter remained the anchor, her calm tone cutting through the noise. We've just heard a fierce exchange over education. Funding. Let's turn to another issue. She paused, her eyes narrowing with purpose. The Trump administration has accused Harvard of tolerating anti-Semitism during recent pro-Palestine protests. Dr. Garber, as university president, how do you respond? All attention swung back to Garber. He sat upright, visibly fatigued from the last round, his hands clasped tightly. He inhaled deeply before responding with deliberate care. That claim is a misrepresentation. Harvard stands unwavering in its commitment to free speech, even when it includes controversial opinions, as long as they're within the bounds of law and academic standards. Any action indicating hate or incitement is investigated immediately. We don't take sides. We ensure every student's voice is respected. His words defended not just policy, but principle. Then his tone sharpened. Rather than fostering discussion, this administration exploits pain for political advantage. That's the actual danger. His statement was firm, not theatrical, but it held weight. Rachel Carter turned to Leavitt. Miss Leavitt, what evidence does the White House present to support this claim? Leavitt leaned forward, confident and composed, her eyes locked on Garber. Harvard may preach about free speech, but students on the ground feel otherwise. Jewish students have expressed feeling targeted, alienated, abandoned, amid unchecked demonstrations. What we're witnessing isn't free speech, it's hostility. Dr. Garber, what have you done to safeguard these students? Her words hit hard. Garber's brow furrowed. His voice rose, a defensive edge emerging. Every concern has been addressed, thoroughly. Internal reports show no systemic anti-Semitism. These claims are exaggerated, used as political weapons to fracture our community. He glanced toward the crowd, seeking understanding. A student suddenly stood, raising a banner that read, "Peace for Palestine." Applause broke out from Harvard supporters. Carter brought the focus back, her professionalism unshaken. Miss Leavitt, do you have direct evidence for the behavior you've mentioned? Leavitt's smile was cold. Her gaze didn't waver. Dozens of Jewish students have come forward in the press, sharing stories of harassment and being labeled during protests. Harvard is aware, but instead of action, they hide behind the curtain of free expression. Dr. Garber, would you stand before those students and tell them they're mistaken? Her question landed like a detonation. MAGA supporters roared, chanting, "Face them!" A Jewish student rose, his voice trembling. "I don't feel safe at Harvard," he declared. Cheers from the MAGA crowd drowned out the murmurs from Harvard supporters. Carter raised her hand for silence, her tone firm. "Dr. Garber, Miss Leavitt is asking you to respond directly to those students. What do you say?" Garber hesitated. A flicker of fear flashed in his eyes. "We are deeply committed to the safety of all students," he began. "And I'm truly sorry if any student feels unsafe. But silencing speech over a handful of incidents is not the answer. The courts," she declared, "will vindicate us." She gestured toward the crowd, galvanizing support. A student rose, holding a banner that read, "Protect the Constitution," triggering enthusiastic applause from Harvard supporters. Rachel Carter, ever composed, maintained a balanced tone. "Miss Leavitt," she turned, "Dr. Garber asserts your demands are illegal. Can you prove President Trump's actions are lawful?" Leavitt responded with a confident smile. Her gaze locked on Garber. "The law allows the government to attach conditions to public funds. Harvard accepts taxpayer money, which means it must adhere to rules that ensure national security and accountability. If that's illegal, Dr. Garber, then perhaps you can justify why Harvard needs $2.3 billion to fund programs that stir controversy." Her words struck with precision, prompting the MAGA crowd to leap up, clapping and chanting, "Answer! You're smearing us!" a Harvard student shouted back, though their voice was drowned by the opposition's roaring energy. Carter raised her hand, steadying the atmosphere. "Dr. Garber, Miss Leavitt asks for clarification on how the funds are used. What is your response?" Garber's face tightened. "Our funding fuels groundbreaking research, provides scholarships, and supports global education. The Trump administration has no authority to dictate our academic choices. This lawsuit is about more than Harvard. It's about safeguarding all universities." His words rang strong, but murmurs spread in the audience. A MAGA supporter yelled, "Harvard's elite privilege!" drawing laughter. Leavitt didn't let up, her tone sharpened. "Cutting-edge research or just ideological education? If Harvard is so confident, it should release a detailed report on how that $2.3 billion is allocated. Americans don't want vague claims. They want facts." Her statement hit hard. The MAGA crowd erupted, chanting, "Release the report." Harvard students booed, their momentum slipping. Carter, grasping the tension, leaned in. "Dr. Garber, will Harvard provide the transparency Miss Leavitt demands?" Garber paused, a flicker of unease crossing his face. "We disclose what's required by law. The real issue is independence. Academia must remain free from political control." But his defense lacked strength. The crowd murmured again. A MAGA student raised a sign, "Truth or Privilege." The energy was electric. Cheers, chants, slogans blending into a rising tide. Carter remained composed at the heart of the storm. Her voice cut through the noise, calm and deliberate. "We've seen impassioned arguments over public funding, freedom in academia, and protest rights. But which direction will shape the future of American higher education?" All eyes turned to Dr. Alan Garber, Harvard's president. His fists clenched, trying to recover after enduring a barrage of critiques. Rising slowly, his voice was low, but resolute. "Higher education is the flame that lights our future. Harvard and institutions like it must champion knowledge, diversity, and open dialogue. The Trump administration's interference seeks to snuff out that flame. We will not allow education to be reduced to political propaganda. I believe Americans will stand by the pursuit of truth. His declaration was met with thunderous applause from Harvard students, their banners raised high like battle flags. Carter now turned to Karoline Leavitt, White House press secretary, her tone sharp. Miss Leavitt, the president claims this is about reform. Is this a move toward a better system or the kind of control Dr. Garber warns against? Leavitt stood, firm, her eyes locked on Garber. America doesn't need elite torches. President Trump believes education should serve all Americans, not just an academic aristocracy. Harvard's programs and opaque finances go against national interests. If Dr. Garber truly stands by his mission, let him prove it with a full public audit. Her words echoed through the studio like a call to arms. Garber responded, cold, but unwavering. A public audit is a cover for interference. Harvard's contributions to research and innovation are globally recognized. We shouldn't have to justify ourselves to political forces seeking to control how knowledge is shaped. He raised his hand, rallying support. His voice was firm, defending academic freedom. Carter kept the conversation grounded. Miss Leavitt, Dr. Garber equates your demands with ideological control. What's your rebuttal? Leavitt didn't miss a beat. Thought control is when universities enforce ideological conformity. That's what Harvard is doing, not us. President, Trump supports openness and accessibility, not elitism. If Dr. Garber truly believes in Harvard's mission, he should welcome a public forum where Americans can decide for themselves. The MAGA crowd roared, "Public forum!" A Harvard student tried to speak up, shouting, "You're ruining education!" but was drowned out by cheers. Carter lifted her hand again. Dr. Garber, will Harvard agree to a public forum? Garber hesitated, visibly rattled. We don't shy from discussion, but Harvard won't partake in political theater. We'll defend ourselves in court and through scholarly discourse. The response fell flat. More murmuring followed. Afraid of the truth, someone shouted, triggering laughter. Carter's gaze remained piercing. Dr. Garber, rejecting open debate might be seen as a refusal to engage in the transparency this era demands. Is that appropriate? Garber exhaled, trying to steady himself. Harvard stands for knowledge and truth. We will fight with facts and law, not on a political stage. Leavitt smirked, stepping forward. There's no objectivity in darkness. The American people deserve transparency, not empty promises. Silence fell, heavy and prolonged. Carter turned to both guests, her voice calm but definitive. This debate wasn't just about Harvard or the Trump administration. It was about a broader struggle between free inquiry and government control, transparency and secrecy. Thank you for joining us. As the show concluded, a storm of public opinion erupted. The debate swept across news outlets, social media, and academic circles. The video went viral, becoming a national focal point, not just on education, but on the broader clash between liberty and authority in America. CNN defended academic institutions, framing Harvard as a beacon of advanced learning threatened by political overreach. They questioned the long-term risks of undermining university independence. Fox News, meanwhile, emphasized financial oversight and ideology. They portrayed Leavitt as a champion of the people, demanding transparency from a privileged elite. Harvard, in their narrative, represented an out-of-touch establishment resisting accountability. Social media mirrored the divide. Hashtags surged, sparking intense debates on free speech, the purpose of education, and the boundary between academia and politics. Analysts and professors weighed in, writing articles on the dangers of politicizing universities and the erosion of educational objectivity. Harvard alumni voiced a range of reactions, from fierce pride to deep concern, revealing the emotional complexity of the issue. The debate went beyond TV. it became a symbol of a broader crisis, a standoff between competing visions for the role of education in society. As the lights dimmed, the studio felt like a battlefield cooling after conflict. Yet the echoes remained. The crowd sat in heavy silence, divided but deeply engaged. Harvard students, their banners now drooping, exchanged tense looks. MAGA supporters, red hats glowing, basked in their sense of triumph. Rachel Carter stood poised at center stage, her face lit with finality. Her voice carried like the conclusion of a historic narrative. What you witnessed today wasn't just a show. It redrew the lines of America's educational future, leaving an indelible mark on our nation. Harvard remained tense in the aftermath. Across campus, international students queued nervously at administrative buildings.